Alright, good people. A few of you have very kindly said you don't mind these driving videos, so I'll do them every once in a while. Actually, I only have a few more commutes left for this semester, so won't be that many. A few videos back, gosh, a few months back now, I did a video called Binging the Videos of Antoine Boya. Not very many people watched, but those who did, I think, appreciated the tip. A superb, phenomenal guitar player, young kid who, I don't know, is unsurpassed in all of the YouTube wizards that I've come across, and somebody I think worth keeping your eye on. And a few people expressed gratitude for being tipped onto him, and I have another one I want to talk about today for slightly different reasons. A brilliant player, a fantastic player, but the reasoning for why I pick him out is slightly different, but no less valuable. So today I'm going to talk about a guitar player from Canada who is not well known in the wider world. Perhaps he has a local following, and he has a YouTube channel, and I have pretty much binged every single video and often go back to them because they're mesmerizing. And the person I'm talking about is called Drew Henderson. And I've talked about classical guitar before. I have many idols going back to Segovia. Julian Bream is one of my favorites. John Williams certainly, and many more since in the most recent generation. We're so lucky we have so many brilliant classical guitarists of both genders from all over the world. There's some great Eastern European, Russian, Chinese, Southeast Asian, American, Brazilian, everywhere has produced a wonderful amount of great classical guitar players and flamenco players as well. And the reason why I'm drawn to Drew's videos are the following. First of all, he is the cleanest and most articulate player I've come across. Now, even the great players, when they film themselves playing live, sometimes flub a note, or there's some small error in the playing. Of course, in their recorded work, they edit that out, but often when you see them playing live performances, you can hear, not very often, but every once in a while, a small error. With Drew Henderson, you don't get that at all. His playing is flawless. It's clean. It's articulate. There's never a flub note. There's never a run that peters out. There's never a passage of play that seems to have the wrong dynamics. There's never a scale that ends on the wrong note or anything like that. Almost mechanically clean. Just an absolutely fabulously articulate and accurate, clean player. Okay, so actually my phone died there for a second, but I was talking about the cleanness and precision of the player, which is second to none. I've heard no one that accurate, that exacting. And it just doesn't have to do with the sound or the technique. It also has to do with his observance of the material. I need to kind of explain this so that you understand what I mean. Modern day guitarists, or any instrumentalist really, it's certainly true in the cello world as well, are guilty somewhat of recontextualizing older or ancient music. They change the dynamics, they apply a modern sensibility to music that was created outside of that sensibility, that was part of a different aesthetic. For instance, if you're talking about the medieval period of music, there's very little vibrato in that particular period. Notes are purer. There's only certain intervals between notes, only certain chordal structures. There's sort of a rule, a harmonic rule that you have to follow. And music must resolve, right? It must find resolution in the final cadences. And this, of course, applies to music all the way through the modern period. When you get to the Baroque period, you can have what you call embellishments, which are supposed to be tasteful and applied conservatively where they're needed. And this could be a trill, or if you want the musical technical term, appoggiatura, a mordant maybe, some sort of melodic trill as one note goes to another. And sometimes it's notated, and other times it's left up to the performer to add those bits. But again, in Baroque music, particularly string music, of which I'm familiar with, it's not emotive. It's not full of sweeping gestures and over-the-top vibrato. And it's much more direct, wholesome, and it's not overly emotional. It's more stately, if you know what I mean. When you get to the classical period, that continues, technically brilliant, but again, not overly emotional until you get to the Romantic period, which is where personality, identity, emotive content, gestures, and player personality with figures like Paganini enter the music. And a good classical player, or even a good player of any types, if you're playing music from another period, you'll try to emulate the aesthetics of that particular period. And one thing I feel about Drew Henderson is that when he's playing Baroque music, he plays it in that sort of pure, straightforward style without modern aggrandizements, without overly embellishing or adding lots of emotion or personal technique that draws attention to himself. It's very period correct. His phrasing, the way he presents the music, it's not egotistical at all. And when he plays Spanish music, because a lot of early classical guitar is from the Spanish tradition, again, it's period correct. He doesn't over embellish. He doesn't add technical gloss to the pieces. Even though he's technically flawless, he's presenting the most accurate rendition of a period and being true to the composition, as true as he can be. A lot of times with modern players, and the easiest way for me to explain this is with the cello, which is my home instrument. You'll get a modern cellist playing a Baroque piece and adding all kinds of technical prowess and very romantic vibrato and tone to the piece that is a later development. It's not part of that particular era. They would never have played it that way. So you recontextualize the piece. And technically there's no problem with that. It's not a sin to take a piece out of the 16th century and give it a 20th century gloss. But I just really like musicians and players who have the discipline to try and recreate something as it was intended, as it was written, and not make it about themselves. one thing I like about Drew Henderson's playing is, as well as being technically proficient, flawless in his renditions, it's also very, very loyal to the intentions of the composer who wrote it and the instructions on the manuscript. It's very period correct. But another dimension to why I like him is he is one of the best people I've come across at recording and presenting his music on YouTube. So there's a modern accomplishment to his playing as well. It is CD quality, or it is hi-fi quality. You could take every YouTube video he's done, make an MP3 of the audio and play it on your speaker system at home. It's flawless. It's very well recorded. Both the space that he's recording in, but also his capturing of the piece. So whatever equipment he's using, whatever microphones he's using, is top notch. The pieces all sound absolutely brilliant, and I know that he is a top technician and sound engineer as well as a player, because I've watched performances by other guitarists that are also very good, and when the credits pop up, his name comes up as the sound engineer for that particular video. So not only is he a player and makes a living as a classical guitar player, he also records other guitar players and has become in demand as a sound engineer because his recordings are so well done. They're really exquisite. They're flawless recordings. Every time I see a new video and I watch it, I'm always stunned by just how good his audio is, but also his video as well. Always tasteful presentation, good angles, a concentration on the playing, not so much on the personality of the player, but maybe 2 or 3 camera angles for most of the recordings where he captures a good presentation of the player playing a live piece of music, and I enjoy it from that perspective as well. So his camera, lighting, and sound engineering work are as much a part of his total production as are his playing and presentation from a musician standpoint. So for me, he's a real example to anyone wishing to present instrumental music on YouTube or on the internet in general. He creates a standard that we should all try to adhere to. Now, obviously, he's not an amateur hack. He has top-notch guitarists, handmade guitars made by top luthiers, and he often plays different ones on the videos and remembers to include that information. For those of you who are nerds like I am, you can see which instrument and model he's playing on any given video, because he always includes good notes in his credits. So it's not like he's having to play with a Cordoba C5. He's professional to the point of having nice instruments, but it also seems that he has top-notch microphones and cameras as well. So maybe it's not as easy to emulate as me just talking about it here. Obviously, it takes a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of equipment purchasing maybe to come up with so flawless of a presentation. So I'm not just saying anyone can do it. However, it is a standard that a lot of people have noticed and have hired him for their own presentations because they recognize what a great standard he has in his own work. And so, yeah, I think in terms of classical music, classical guitar, there are more famous names. There are people that command more attention. There are people that fill, concert houses a lot more than he does. But as far as just the sheer presentation of classical guitar work, of quite a scope. I mean, he plays stuff from, the European, the South American, even Asian traditions from different periods, and it's all done with the same grace and technique and flawless presentation. So for me, he's just a standout player, and even though when I mention his name, no one seems to have heard of him. Hopefully he'll get his acclaim at some point, because I think he's an exceptional guitar player. He's also really interested in the craft in general. He does a lot of videos where he shows off different guitar models, guitar makers, certain period instruments. So from a luthier perspective, it's interesting to watch his videos as well. And by the way, I've been talking about his solo music. He's a consummate solo performer, but he also, a lot of his videos include his duo partner. I think his name is Michael Kolk, K-O-L-K. It might be, or Andreas Kolk. I think it's Kolk, though, is the last name. So the Henderson-Kolk duo is where he plays classical duets. And another thing about Henderson that I haven't mentioned so far is he's a brilliant transcriber. A lot of the classical music that is very famous was written before the guitar became a concert instrument, mostly under Segovia's influence. So it wasn't written for guitar. And so a lot of great guitar players, whether it's John Williams, Julian Bream, Segovia himself, have written guitar transcriptions where they take quartet or orchestral music, or music that's written for other instruments like the Bach suite, cello suites, and transcribed it for guitar, often having to change the key so that it works with guitar tuning, since it wasn't written for that instrument. Sometimes they have to tweak it. And a lot of the arrangements that Drew Henderson plays on his channel are his own, and you can buy or download the manuscripts or the tablature of his own transcriptions, and they're very, very good. And some of those he does with his partner Kolk in these wonderful guitar duets that are just as accurate and flawless in the presentation as his solo work. And they do a lot of really interesting transcriptions of well-known orchestral works. For instance, I think it's Mozart's 40th Symphony they do for duo guitar, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic the way he takes the orchestration and he creates complementary guitar parts from that orchestration. One of my favorites is they did the Beethoven 7th Symphony for duo guitar, and it's a transcription of Drew Henderson's. And you may remember, if you're not familiar with the Beethoven symphonies, you may remember the film that was really, really popular, the King's Speech. I forget the name of the actor now, but it was about the when Britain's king, who we knew as David, or I think it was George was his king name, when he abdicated because he married an American divorcee, the younger brother had to become king, Bertie. I think he became an Edward, or maybe I have it the wrong way around. I think he became an Edward. It was a film about that speech, and during the speech, the montage of the great speech that he puts together with overcoming a speech defect in the film. The backdrop music is that wonderful Beethoven Symphony No. 7. I think it's the opening movement. And these guys do a guitar version of it. It's just wonderful. It's absolutely fantastic. So I really recommend that. But I've gone on about it long enough now. I've binged all the videos of Drew Henderson. I watch a lot of classical guitar videos, a lot of flamenco videos, a lot of fingerstyle guitarists. So I'll try to do one or two more in this series. But when it comes to sampling classical guitar works on the internet, I think Drew Henderson is the best that I've seen so far. It's just, his work is so pristine and flawless in the way it's presented and played. I highly recommend it, particularly if you want to learn about the repertoire of classical guitar. He does a lot of Spanish music that was written for guitar, but he also does a lot of transcription stuff where it's transcribed from other works or from solo works written for other instruments. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. It's something that I discovered in the last year or two and was excited to share. So look him up, sample his videos, and I'll see you next time.